Alabama head coach Nick Saban rolling through SEC Media Days. You're almost at the finish line here, and I assume you've been asked the same thing about a million times. Has there been anything today where you just get tired of saying, I don't know? I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know what's going to happen. Because I've heard that a lot lately.
Well, there's a lot of hypothetical questions being asked about what's going to happen in the future. And I don't think anybody really has a clear view of the solution about the future. So I don't really have the answer to it either. So I have been saying, I don't know.
A lot of people want to talk about NIL. And one of the themes I've started to hear you mix in a lot more is who's protecting the players. And you talk about the NFL structure a lot. And you've got an agent, you've got structure, and everyone knows what they can do. NIL is kind of what NIL is right now. But when you talk about the need to protect players, what specifically do you mean?
Exactly what you said. There's more and more people trying to get between the player and the money. These people have to have no qualifications. Who knows what kind of advice and direction they're giving to players, how they're protecting players from signing, deals that may not be in their best interest or, may create future problems for them in terms of other things that they're doing. College guys are still student athletes, where they're involved in personal development, they're involved in academics, they're involved in developing a career off the field, they're involved in, developing a career on the field. Like you said, the NFL has a Players Association. Players Association govern agents to protect the players. Our players in college don't have anyone to protect them and make sure that people who are representing them are qualified to do that.
Competitive balance is a phrase a lot of people outside this world have used for a long time, just about watching some of the haves and have-nots. It's a theme I've heard you hit on a lot lately. Sometimes when people hear the big dog say competitive balance, they look and say, but they already win. Why would he talk about that? And yet, I heard you today. I've heard you recently. You've said, look, we're one of the haves. So it's not necessarily us being victimized. So when you extend it beyond Alabama, if nothing changes, what's the ultimate outcome of maybe the path the sport's on?
Well, the ultimate outcome is going to become all about money. And the ultimate outcome will move away from development of college students. We all went to college to develop value for our future. Is that not true? We matured personally. We got an education. We developed a career by graduating. In lots of cases, guys had an opportunity to play at the next level, whether they played baseball, football, basketball, it didn't matter. So college was about developing. Where can I create the most value for my future? But it's going to be about who's going to pay me the most money and use name, image, and likeness as the vehicle to do that through collectives, which a collective is just the opportunity for alumni who we've always tried to keep out of recruiting, who we've always tried to keep out of directing money toward players. The collective creates an opportunity in a legal fashion, right, to do this and funnel money to players, right, which I'm okay with that because it's good for players. I don't know if it's a sustainable model, all right, but I'm okay with that. But when you use that in recruiting, then it becomes, I'm just going to go where I can get the best deal rather than focus on where can I go and create the most value for my future. And that's the part that is very concerning, I think, to me in terms of competitive balance. So it'll be about who wants to buy the best team, and there are going to be lots of people who don't have the resources to do that. We're not one of them. So I'm not talking about Alabama getting affected in this. People think that when I talk, I'm like trying to protect Alabama. I'm really trying to protect the integrity of college athletics, not just college football. People don't understand that there's only so much money to go around. All right, so how is this going to impact other programs, all right, that have given how many student athletes an opportunity to compete, to develop a career? If you're in track and field, and you got a scholarship to go to college. It gave you an opportunity to go to the Olympics. I mean, how much is all that going to be impacted by this? Because there's only so much money to go around. All right, so it's going to be interesting to see how we come up with some guidelines, all right, that allow us to keep the integrity of college sports intact and keep competitive balance in those sports.
One of the biggest things I think, even I've heard coaches differ in opinion on, is what the right scheduling model is. You got 2 new teams coming into the conference, but I think a lot of folks love watching Alabama football. People don't get so stoked when they wake up on a Saturday morning and know Bama's favored by 48 today. And I've heard you talk a little bit lately about how you don't prefer that either. You want games that people want to see, but you can't just snap your fingers and make it happen. So,
right.
I mean, I guess I'm asking you, what is the best overall format and how feasible is it to actually make it happen?
Well, you know, I've coached in the NFL for 8 years. So you got 32 teams. Every rule in the NFL creates competitive balance. Salary cap. If you have a good season, you play a more difficult schedule. If you have a good season, you draft later. If you have a bad season, you draft earlier. I mean, everything they do is to try to create everybody to be 8-8 in the NFL. Because if everybody's 8-8 and you're coming to the last game of the season, there's going to be tremendous fan interest to see who gets to the playoffs. But when you have these teams that go 13-3 and they don't even play the best players at the end of the season, because they're saving them for the playoffs, how much fan interest does that create? So I think we need to respect fans, fan interest, traditions, and the integrity of those traditions in terms of how the interest that it creates in college football. All right, if attendance goes down, then how does that impact us in a positive way? So to play quality games is the most important thing. All right, but our rules don't enhance us playing quality games because you got to have a winning record to get in the bowl game. Why don't we do it like basketball? Have some rating system that even if you went 5-7, but you played a really good schedule and you beat some pretty good teams, you could go to a bowl game. Rather than trying to create a schedule where you play 4 teams that you know you're going to beat, and if I can just win 2 other games, I'll be bowl eligible. And that's important to my program. And it's important to me keeping my job. All right, so, but how about the fans? Do they want to go see these games? So, you know, it was, I don't know how many years ago, 6, 8 years ago, I said, why don't we play 9 games in the SEC? All right, now they're talking about playing 9 in the future. I'm saying, why don't we play 10? All right, we had one season, all right, which was a great competitive season. We didn't play one game where every fan wasn't interested in a game, and that was the COVID year when we played 10 SEC games, played an SEC championship game, and had a playoff. So we played 13 games, and there was one game that everybody wasn't interested in. So would you lose more games if you played that? Probably. But there would be a lot more interest, all right, which I think is the most important thing. The stadium being filled. The passion and the spirit of the fans makes college football what it is. Let's protect it.
You got me. Last question on the field. Everybody's excited about Will Anderson. I just want to ask you about the pass rush in general. Braswell, Dallas Turner, guys like that. I mean, how exciting is that to go out on the practice field and know that you've got that weapon in your back pocket?
Well, pass rush is really, really important. And we've gone through some years where we didn't have great pass rushers, and we've gone through some years when we did. And those 3 guys that you mentioned are all really good pass rushers. It affects the way you can play defense. You can rush 4 guys. You can play coverage with 7. You don't have to add extra guys into the rush. You can do simulated pass rushes because those guys are athletic and they can drop and are worried about blocking them, but now all of a sudden they're not rushing. You don't have to play a lot of man-to-man in the back end because you want to rush 5 and 6 guys, which puts a lot of pressure on, you know, another part of your team in the back end. So just the whole way that you can play defense, when you can affect the quarterback with a 4-man rush and sometimes even a 3-man rush, which creates more multiples to confuse the quarterback, which is ultimately what you're trying to do on defense. So I think having those kind of guys is really, really important. And certainly something that can help us be a good defensive team.
Nick Saban, appreciate you joining us.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry to get long-winded in that one.
Oh, that's okay, Coach.
We
No
don't
problem.
mind that from Coach there. We like long-winded answers from Nick Saban. Alabama's schedule, of course, the one that everybody has circled, is October 8th when they host Texas A&M. And despite, Chris, what Jimbo Fisher had to say about Alabama and vice
He's a
versa,
narcissist.
Alabama plus 180 to win the national championship. They are the favorite. A&M at 25-1 odds.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.